Hey guys, Liquid Fire here. Thanks for joining me again tonight, where we're going to get into the full tutorial for the Way of the Hunter Toolbox. So considering you're in the Way of the Hunter Toolbox full tutorial video right now, I'm going to assume that you know that the Way of the Hunter Toolbox update has happened. And in fact, it's not just an update, but it's a brand new Way of the Hunter Toolbox. If you are looking for just a real quick introduction, something that's high level, just a few minutes to kind of explain how the basics are, you're in the wrong video. You want to jump over to the Way of the Hunter Toolbox introduction. That's a real quick, high level, just touching the basics. That's the video for you if you're not looking to get into the weeds. What we're here for is the full tutorial, and we are going to truly be getting into the weeds. I'm going to try to highlight everything on every page, how everything works, and give you some ideas on how to use things. So to kind of get started, obviously this is the home page. So from here you can get to everything that you can do in the entire toolbox. On the left hand side you've got the sidebar with all the different options, your settings, your signing in, and right here in front of you you can get to most of everything that you're going to do day to day directly from here. So if you need to check out firearms, you can click here, ammo, animals, life cycle. You can bring up the maps page, but you don't even have to, because all the maps are listed right here in front of you. And you can simply click on any of these and go directly to that particular map. We'll also talk about some techniques to kind of make that a little more interesting when you launch things. Below the maps, you get into the guides. So like I mentioned earlier, the introduction, that's the real quick high level. The full tutorial, that's what we're doing now. We're going to walk through everything. And I'm sure there will be additional guides from other creators, especially in other languages and stuff like that, that'll make it here and be useful for everybody to kind of take a look at how things work. Below the guides, we have the community section, and there's a couple pieces in here that I'm going to actually get into. But you've got the join Discord, the view on Steam, kind of the normal things. But let's take a look at the about section. So first off, in the about section, we wanted to put out there that this is not something that's done by Nine Rock Games or THQ Nordic. This is something that Nick has built on his own, of his own accord. They have shared data. They're aware of it. They use it. So it's not like it's anything. It's a secret. There's no taboo for using the toolbox. It is just another tool for the game. It just happens to be outside of the game. But it's nothing taboo about it. Everybody uses it. It's something that you can openly talk about. It's not like it's a cheat or anything like that. Nine Rocks, those guys are completely aware of it. Like I said, they gave data to help, especially on the initial version, to help create a better app. So be aware of that. The disclaimer, of course, it's provided as is without any warranty of any kind, express or implied, all the normal stuff there. But the big thing here is the contact section. So if you have any questions or you have a suggestion or there's any type of bugs or anything like that, there's a couple of different ways to get a hold of Nick. So obviously on the Way of the Hunter Discord server, you can just ping Nick, quick and easy. But on that same server, there is a Way of the Hunter feedback forum, and in there is a Way of the Hunter Toolbox feedback and requests thread. You can go into there and give any suggestions. If you have any issues or anything like that, you can post things there. And of course, you can feel free to ping me. I'm always glad to help out with anything if I can. Now, there are a number of people who have actually been helpful and have helped kind of shape the new toolbox. And I wanted to go ahead and call those guys out now. So Nick does all the coding. So this is completely his app. I'm not trying to indicate anything other than that. This is all Nick. But there have been a handful of other people who have helped out. So when you start digging into the back end and start building out the UI and you start coming up with ways to display things, a lot of people have different opinions, different views. So there's been a lot of different conversations. So these guys have helped out in one way or another. So you've got Jax Warden, Joe Pro 80. These are all from the Discord, Way of the Hunter Discord. You've got Sightless, Sloth's Rage, and Toothless. So these guys have all been a part in one way or another of helping shape, especially what the new Way of the Hunter Toolbox looks like. Of course, I've been harassing Nick since the very beginning on the original Toolbox. So, yeah, give these guys a hand. If you see them, give them a thanks. They've been handy, no doubt about it. So the other thing is I wanted to back up and take a look at this little help section. So if you want to get some interesting information, if you want to get some important information, you can jump in here and kind of scroll through and get an idea of how different things work and get the basics on what you're doing. It's not going to go completely into the weeds and go through everything you can possibly do, but there is a ton of information in here. And if you're wanting to kind of figure out how to do something, or if you forget how to do something, you can absolutely come in here and get a really good idea of how to handle things. So just as a heads up, be sure to check this out, especially down here at the very bottom, the keyboard shortcuts. This is going to be super handy to give you a good indication of how to do different things, like clearing the filters or edit territories, selecting multiple animals, things like that. So just be aware that this is in here, and it's pretty robust. There's a ton of information in here, so check it out. You can click through using the little guide over here and get into any little piece of it super quick and easy. But yeah, so be sure to check those out. So now we're going to kind of get through the how to use the app. So in the introduction, I mentioned that this is actually a cloud save. It's not something that's using your local saves anymore. So the first thing you need to do, if you want to be able to save information on your maps, you want to edit herds, you want to take notes and all that, is you have to sign in. So down here on the lower left, you have the sign in option. You just click on that, and then you have a ton of different options to actually sign in. You can use your email. You've got Discord, Twitch, Twitter, GitHub, well, X, formerly known as Twitter. Apparently you can do it through GitHub even. So Microsoft, Slack, email. I don't think there's any other options. Yeah, that's it. So you can use any of these. And the easiest way for me is to simply use Discord. So that's what I do. I click on Discord. I click on Authorize. And that's it. It will automatically grab my information from the Discord site, log me in here, and we're done. And then that sign in turns into my account, and you're good to go. That's it. It's really that easy. Now, if you have information in your maps from the original app, you've marked your herds, you've got all your notes and things like that, you're going to want to be able to import them into the new app so you don't lose all of that information. So the key thing here is you want to do that early. So before you go in and make any type of edits, you want to actually go and import your own map. So real quickly, we're just going to jump into Nez Perce, and we're going to make a real quick edit. It's not going to matter what it is. We're just going to pick something here and add it and be done. So now I've edited this map. So if I go to my account and I go to import, the data's already here. So you have to choose whether or not to keep the data that you've added in directly, or if you want to clear it out and then import. So doing this will actually delete everything we just did, which, I mean, it was just one animal, but that information that we put in here is going to now be gone. So it's not a big deal, but if you don't think about importing and you spend a couple weeks using the app, now you've got a real dilemma. Do you want to lose everything you have, or do you want to lose everything that you had in the old map? So my recommendation is to sign in and import all of your information right off the bat. Before you do anything else, go ahead and do the import. And it's actually really easy. So you click on the import button that we were just talking about here after clicking on my account. And then you just go to the old app. In the old app up here on the top right hand side, you have the settings icon here, your little gear cog. Just click on it, come down to data migration, click open. All this funky information here is what we're actually looking to copy, so you don't have to highlight it. You just click this copy button and you'll get a confirmation that it was copied over. You can close these out, go back to the new app, and paste it right here. That's it. Now just click on this decode button and you're going to get a summary of everything that was on the old map. So you've got your different territories, your members, you've got all the different maps. So this is probably going to be confusing to most people unless you're really engaged with what you're tracking. But just make sure that you have information on all the maps, and it looks like the right amount of things. Like you can see on Transylvania, I have practically nothing on there. That's because I had to dump. Actually, most of this, you can tell it's really small. I lost a ton of my data on the old app. So I don't have a lot on there. So this is correct for me. You may have hundreds more, you may have fewer, doesn't matter. But just make sure it looks right for what you have. Then you click on import, you get the little confirmation pop-up, and you click on import here, and you're done. That's it. Now if you go into any of the maps, so we'll just click on Linticoto. As soon as it loads in, you can see all of my information is here now. So this is everything I have in Lint from my original Way of the Hunter Toolbox. So that's kind of a key thing here. And again, all of this is done on a cloud save. So you can bring it up on a different computer. You can bring it up on your laptop, your phone, whatever, and get to all of the information. Now, the good thing is when you start looking at the different settings and things, you can set it up to look differently, changing the icon size or whatever. Those types of settings are saved locally. So you can have it set up for one computer one way, another computer a different way. Maybe you're looking at it on your phone. You can do all those things and have it set up for each one individually. But all of the information saved from the maps, things like that, that's all going to be saved in the cloud. So no matter which machine you're on, you make an update, every machine that you use can get to it. Now, if you want to keep two different versions, so like you wanted to, maybe you have a test save and you wanted to mark some stuff, differently for that, in that case, you would have to log in with a different account. And then you have to start keeping up with which account's your test account, which is your main account. But it's an option. So if you're doing something, that engaging and that involved, you're going to have to swap through accounts and do that. I don't think it's something most people are going to do, but I wanted to kind of showcase that is something you can do. So that's it for the import. Again, it's really simple. Just click on import, copy the data, paste it in, and move on. We're going to jump over to settings next. So if you click on settings, there's a ton of different things you can actually change in the app itself. So the theme, from here you can choose your light theme or your dark theme. I'm going to stay with the dark, of course. You can select your languages. There's a ton of different localizations in here. If you don't see the language you're looking for, you can talk to Nick and see if he can do one for it. Can't say for sure if he can or can't, but if you're missing it, reach out. We'll see what happens. Maybe we can do something about it. Units of measurement. So this is your metric or imperial. So there's a few different things in game, or excuse me, in the app where you look at ranges. So it can be set to show yards or meters, things like that. Not a big deal, but to me, it's kind of handy to keep it the way you have it in game. And I always recommend using metric in game. It's coded in metric. All of the numbers work out best if they're metric, like 250 meters instead of, some odd number of yards. It still messes with my mind a little bit because I use imperial all the time. But honestly, if I'm thinking about shooting at a distance, I just think of it in terms of yards anyway. It doesn't matter if it's meters or yards. There's no huge difference between 100 meters and 100 yards. Yeah, it's not the same. I get it. I understand. But in terms of a game, in terms of shooting an animal, it's close enough. Now, in the maps, this section here, there are a lot of options, and some of these we'll get into in detail from the maps. But you can change the 3D option. You can turn it on and off so that you don't accidentally tilt things. The labels to show what the regions are named as. The area lines, that's all the borders around the maps. All of these you can get to in a different way too, but this is where they are. So the area line colors, if you want to change the color for the borders, the boundaries, however you want to look at it on the map, you can click on this and set them to whatever color you want, quick and easy. And the same thing for the preferred zone. So this is our need zones. There's always been an ask to be able to mark the often zones a different color. So it's been built, and you can change the color here. We'll detail all of this in the maps area, but you can change that color here. The color presets, this is for the colors you can select for your different herds. You can actually click on these guys and change it to to any color you want. So for example, let's say I want to make this a real bright yellow. I could do that. And instead of having just like the pastel yellow, you can have a real bright and distinct yellow. And we'll talk about these more when we get into the map. But this is where you can change these, and you can actually change the order. So if you find that you like using the ones on the far right or the far left, you can put your favorite color over here on the far right. So maybe I want to go with this bright green here. I can either just set it with the color picker here, or I can type in the number. So like if I want to type in the hex, I can do 00FF00, I think. Yeah. So I can set it here. And now when I go into the map, it'll actually show the green over here on the far right. So if that's the one I use the most and where I want it, you can move it around. So maybe you want this magenta looking color over here on the left. You can just set it up, move them around, and have it display the way you like it. For me personally, I like a more vivid palette, so I will actually be changing these colors around pretty significantly. I'll actually be using this set of colors, which will give me the ability to have the really bright, distinct colors I want, and then have some kind of the more muted, duller tones and things like that. But that's just for me. The other thing is the marker size. So this is a size that the markers show up on the map. I'm going to leave it on medium, of course. Fitness potential and rating. So fitness potential is a little kind of like the banners that you have in the maps now for herd management. So you've got like the crown and you've got the orange tabs hanging down. That's these guys. So you can actually set those on your herds. Again, we'll walk through these, don't worry. And the rating will show like the 4-star, 5-star, anything you mark it as. That's where these show up at. And if you get it here and you start messing around with the collars and you get it all jacked up and you just don't like the way it looks, quick and easy, just click on the reset here. Now it will reset all of your settings, but the key thing here is don't be afraid to try different things, to play around with things. If you get it messed up, click reset. It's going to reset everything, but you're fine. So you're back to where it was to begin with, and you can change anything any way you want. So don't be afraid of that. Now, delete data. This one you got to be a little more careful with. If you want to delete all of the map data, every note that you have, every herd you have marked, you can click on this and easily reset everything. Then you would go through and import all of your data again from the old app. Or if you're not doing that, you just have a clean slate and you can start fresh and start marking whatever you want. So that's where you can do this. The same thing when you go to do the import. If you know you're going to import, you have made some markings on the maps, you can just come here and reset it here before you do the import. It all works the same way. Okay, so we've kind of went through the settings. We went through importing things. Let's go into the actual pages here and start taking a look at what we can really do. So we're on the firearms page, and of course, at a high level, it's all the weapons, your rifles, your shotguns, your bows, your crossbows. They're all sorted alphabetically. So if you're looking for, say, the Steyrs, just go to this, you can find it all. You also have the ability to change it from a grid to a, I don't know what you call it. There's a correct term for it. I don't remember what it's called, but you can change your grid layout here. So it's just whichever you prefer. This is nice looking because you get the bigger weapons and all that. To me, this is a more compact view. I'm not looking for a picture of a weapon. I'm looking for the name. Honestly, for me, I'm more interested in the caliber than the actual name in most cases. So I'm going to be looking for the caliber. The other thing is you have this filter over here. And this is where things can get really, really, really interesting, because you can go through and sort by a ton of different things. And when you get into the maps, it's even miles more. But high level, the hunting tier. So these guys, it's just the tier of the weapon. So you pick on tier 6, for example. These are all the T6 guns. Now you'll notice bows and crossbows show up. Most of them are going to give you the ability to take an animal that's 1 through 6. Not all of them, but we'll say most of them. They will all take animals that are T1 through T6. They're just not necessarily listed that way in game, but you can. So it will allow you to filter. Mostly we're talking about rifles, but it will allow you to filter down to look for something specific. If you don't know the name, you don't know the size, and you're just looking for something big and strong, filter to T6, boom, you've got all that. Maybe you're wanting to go the other way and you want to look at the smaller weapons. So if you go to tier 1, you get all your 12 gauges, your 20 gauges, your shotguns basically, your bows and your crossbows. Again, the bows are going to be across a range. They're not going to be just T1. So you're going to get a lot of filters that show the different bows and crossbows. So that's something you can do. Just as a heads up, if you happen to try to do something that doesn't work. So here we're clicking on the tier 6 and the 22 long rifle. If we try to do that, yeah, there's no results. Click on this clear filters, it'll reset you and you're back to up and running. And then you can go back and start filtering for whatever you want. Of course, you've got the categories, so you can filter by bows, by crossbows, by rifles and shotguns. So you don't even have to worry about the tier. If you just want to see bows, it's that quick and easy. Now, if you come in here and you're thinking, man, something's missing. Maybe there's 22s missing and you're expecting to see them or whatever. So if you see this is lit up, you can come over here, click clear, and that'll clear out all your filters. You're back to up and running. Everything's working the way you would expect it. Now, if we actually click on one of these weapons, so let's go to the Steyr monoblock, for example. So in here, we get a ton of information on the actual weapon. So you get everything from in-game. So it's got the description, it's got the caliber, you've got the specific stats. It's a 308 Winchester, it's a bolt, it's a T5, it holds 4 in the magazine, and then you have the accuracy rating. So this accuracy, this is not something that you see in game unless you're considering the size of the Hunter Sense dot. So this information's been kind of pulled from the data itself. And the way this is working is basically the more accurate the rifle is, the further to the right this is going to show in this bar. So if we jump back and go to, say, the 30-06, which of course I'm not able to see it. Here we go. We go to the 1903. Look at the accuracy here. Very, very inaccurate rifle. Now again, if you're shooting at a couple hundred yards, doesn't matter. They're all fine. You're going to be able to hit the lungs. You may not be able to pick the heart. You may not be able to pick a spine shot at a couple hundred meters with the 1903. But in terms of shooting the animal and hitting it, it's fine. And reality is, with the 30-06, if you hit him in the lungs, that's all you need. You don't have to be super accurate. It hits like a tank. So that's kind of an idea of how that accuracy piece is going to work. Now, if you go below it, you get into all these different ammos. So the ammo here are the 3 different rounds you can use in the 1903. I know we were on the monoblock earlier, but we're here, so we'll just look at these. So you've got the Barnes TSX, you've got the trophy bonded tip, and you've got the Power Shock rifle. So you can see hollow point, poly tip, soft point, just all the basic information. And over here on the right hand side, you have the different firearms. So you can actually click on these and cycle through any of the firearms that use that same round. So here, 30-06, you can go to the 1903 or the Remington 700 CDL just by clicking here, and you can get an idea of the accuracy difference between the two just by clicking here. You can see the 700 isn't exactly hugely accurate, but it's probably accurate enough for most of what you're going to do. Now, if we take a look over here, you've got this additional filter, okay? So if we click on it, you can actually expand the range of this out to 1,500 meters. And same thing with zeroing. Now, if you're looking at actual zeroing in game, generally it's going to be out to about 1,000 meters. But if you're looking to do long range shooting, take this guy and take it all the way out to 1,500 meters. Because what that's going to do is it will give you an idea of what type of energies you have. You can quickly see which are going to be the more powerful rounds, and you can get a really good idea of what you can look at when you start looking at a very long distance. Now you'll notice the flight paths are different. So the faster, more powerful rounds, effectively the rounds are going to shoot flatter because they are able to push more energy across the entire range. So you're not going to see everything drop off at a different rate because they're all zeroed at 1,500 meters. Now, if you're shooting at 1,000 meters, well, we'll just change it. So we zero to 1,000 meters. You're going to see where things cross over a little bit differently just because of the way the energies are. So here's your 0 point, but you can see after the fact how things change. If we pretend that our zeroing is at 1,000 meters, they're going to line up at the same spot. But take a look at the different energy. So that TSX, it has 1618. The core locked only has 971, and the trophy bonded tip has 1854. So that's a 1.5 kilometer shot. That's a really long shot. The reality is the 270, it can take down deer and stuff at this range, but it's not a great option anymore. It used to be a really powerful option that you could take a long shot with. But you can kind of see now, even at, 1.5 kilometers, it's not the most powerful. It's not the best option. If we jump over to something like the 338 and take a look. So we take this, set it to 1,500, set the zeroing to 1,500. Take a look at these energies. So now you've got 2235 and 2174, and you can really see the difference in the way the flight paths are. Now, what's interesting here, you'll notice that the more powerful round is actually not the flattest shooting round. That's real ballistics in game. So because it's a heavier round, if we take a look at the two here, we've got the Grand 5000 versus a Trophy Copper. So we'll click on the Grand 5000. You'll see it has a weight of 17.82 grams. And if we go to the Trophy Copper, it's only a 16.2 grams, 250 grain versus a 275 grain bullet. So they're going to have different flight characteristics. So when you start looking at the long distance shooting, yeah, where you hold along the way would be different, but the energy at the end is what really matters. In this case, you're looking at 2235 versus 2174. Not a huge difference, but enough to matter. And when you start taking even longer shots, those numbers matter more and more. And you can tell that it's always going to be a better option at the longer ranges to run the Grand 5000. So that's a way you can use this external ballistics, and you can kind of see how you can bounce around to the ammunition page versus the firearms page just by clicking on these little tabs here. So these guys, these tiles, I call them tabs. These tiles are really handy when you're trying to look into things and start researching, because you can quickly bounce around between different weapons. You can bounce around between the different ammos for the different weapon and get a lot of information really handy. So that's kind of it for the firearms page. You can look at things for the shotguns. The ballistics are a little bit different with the shotguns, of course, so not really something that you're going to be looking at a lot of ballistics for the shotguns. And same thing with the bows. They're going to shoot, they're going to drop. You're not going to get a ton of information. The key thing with the bows, if you hit it in a lung, in a vital organ, it's generally going to be a critical shot, unless you're using something like the stump, of course. Then it's just going to bounce off, or if it's a small animal, it'll do the damage. But you can take a look at the different ranges here. So even the ranges are shut down to a much lower range because of how weak they are when you start looking at longer ranges. But you'll notice the zeroing here is set to match the actual zeroing in game. Now the reason that matters is, let's set this back to like 100 meters. So we have the zeroing, we'll set it to 50 meters. So here's our 0 point. Now, where this is handy is when you're looking at how high to hold. So maybe you're wanting to take an 80-meter shot and you're zeroed at 50 meters. So now we're on the Bear Alaskan. You can take a look at the different arrows you can use and see what type of hold you need. Now they all fly the same, so it doesn't matter. But you can see if you're taking an 80-meter shot and you're zeroed at 50, you're going to have to hold 144 centimeters high. So that's a lot of drop. Now at 50 meters, your drop is 1 centimeter, effectively no drop at all. So at 80 meters, you have a ton more drop. So you can use this with the bows to figure out your additional holds. That's really handy if you look at something like the recurve. Whoops, I clicked on ammo. So let's take a look at the recurve here. And if we take our distance, we'll set it to 100 meters. And I can't remember what it's zeroed at. Is it zeroed at 25 meters? You can change it up to 60. So we'll do 50 meters again. So you're zeroed at 50. You need to take a 70-meter shot. You can see here you need to hold 121 centimeters high. So you can effectively have one setting, come in here and learn what your holds are and not have to waste a bunch of shots at animals in game. You can take this and know exactly where to hold. Now, how do you determine what is 209 centimeters in game? Well, that's a different question for a different video, and I don't think there's a really great answer, but it does give you an idea of how much of drop you're going to see. So that's where that kind of comes in handy off the Firearms tab. And I think that's everything that we can really get into on the firearms. So let's jump over to the ammo. And again, we got the same thing. You've got the different grid layout. So you have the list view or the grid view. Oh, list view and grid view. I think that's the right names. Whatever. You see pictures of the ammo. It's not a big deal. We're going to leave it in the list view just for the more compacted view. It's broke down by slug, buckshot, pellets, bows, bolts, and of course your cartridges for all your rifles. And you have all the same filters here. At the top you got your tiers, you've got your calibers. Down here you get the projectile type and then the ammo type. So you can click on these guys. So you want to take a look at mechanical broadheads. These are all the ones that use mechanical broadheads. You want to look at, let's say, the Sabo slugs. So, boom, here you go. There's your AccuTip and there's your Llewellyn's Elite. So you can use these filters the same way as you can on the rifles and filter things out to whatever makes sense for what you're looking for, which is handy because if you're trying to find the 22, I personally look for 22. I don't think about the name of the ammunition. So that's a little harder for me to find stuff in here. Let's see, 224, 223. Here we go, 22 long rifle. So there's my Thunderbolt. All right, I found one of them. Now I've got all the information for the 22 long rifles because we have the same thing again with the ammo. We've got the small game, the Yellow Jacket, and the Thunderbolt, and I can just click through any of these and get to whichever one I want to actually look for. We've got all the stats. So you've got the caliber, the hunting tier, the muzzle energy, the muzzle velocity, and the weight of the bullets, the 36 grain for the small game up here. Basic game information. You got the firearms. Again, these are the different weapons that'll shoot this particular round. We've got the recommended animals. So on this one, we'll go ahead and jump into this. It's going to give you a list of the animals that are recommended for shooting it. 22 is a really bad option for that because there's not very many very many animals that you can take out with the 22. So you get a really short list. So the way the list works is it's going to hide everything that is not effective for this particular round. You can choose to show all, and it'll show everything, but there's not a lot of value in that unless you're just looking for something. But it will show what you're looking for. Let's jump to a different round so you can see something that's a little more realistic for hunting animals. So here we've got the Barnes TSX. We're in the 6.5 Creedmoor. And you can see there's a ton more animals that you can actually take out. It's actually too powerful for some things at shorter range. Let's extend this out to, well, let's just do 1,000 meters. So now you can start seeing where things start dropping off, which tells you this round is actually pretty good for long range shooting on a lot of different animals. It does manage to land in the correct energy for a ton of animals. If we take a look here, just like we did on the weapons page, we'll set it to 1500 and 1500 just so we can take a look at these values. You'll see at 1,000 meters, the Barnes TSX still has 1776 joules. So that's a good bit of energy. So the ELDX, we'll have to reset these again. Set it to 1500. It's got even more. So it's got 2263. And if we click on the recommended animals, you can see that at 1,000 meters, you've got a ton of stuff you can take out with this. So that's where the recommended animals kind of comes in. It just makes it an easy way to understand which type of animals you can take out with this particular ammo. Again, ammo's tied to the gun. Yeah, it shoots a 6.5 Creedmoor, but the ammo itself is what makes the difference. So like with a 30-30, for example, you have that really weak managed recoil round. So let's see if we can find a 30-30 here quickly. So you've got the really weak managed recoil round. And if you compare it to shooting something like even the 6.5, you'll see that you've got a much, much, much shorter range when it comes to shooting these animals. So it's kind of a way you can use the recommended animals to understand how the weapon is going to work. Now we walk through the ballistics. It's exactly the same. The only difference here is it's only going to show the one round. So if you're wanting to compare ammo in terms of like for like, meaning 30-30s comparing against each other, I honestly recommend going to the Firearms tab and just clicking on the 30-30 from here. So we're going to use the the filter, and we're just going to bring up the 30-30 to make it easy. So here I can take a look at 350 meters and see, okay, the Nosler partition has the most energy. If I'm wanting to take any type of longer range shots, that's the weapon, or excuse me, that's the ammo I'm going to choose. So in the weapons page, the firearms page, you get all three of the different ammos that are available, and you can compare them all side by side to where on the actual ammo page, and we'll do the filter again for the 30-30, make it easy. So that's not really handy if you're trying to compare all three of the rounds against each other, but what it does do is it allows you to really dial into one round. So let's click on the Nosler partition. Since we're on the 30-30, it's the most powerful. We'll stretch the range out to 1,500 meters, zero it to 1,500 meters, just so we can get the most information into our graphs here. And of course, you can just highlight and see here at 800 meters, you have a power of 599 joules. You have to hold, 2,405 centimeters high. So it's well, low. You have to hold low because it's shooting that high because you're zeroed at 1,500 meters. But the hold isn't really what we're talking about. It's the energy here. You can see it's a really weak round. But you can move through here and get an idea of what the energy is at different ranges. But what you can also do is really get a grid view and take a look at a table and see exactly how everything really works. So down here in the details, if you click on this little double chevron, you have a ton of data that you can actually dial in on. So we're looking again, of course, at the 30-30, so these numbers are going to be really low. But at range, so at 1,000 meters, you can see you only have 487 joules. But you also get velocity, drop, and time. So we know that we're quote-unquote zeroed at 1,000 meters, or excuse me, 1,500 meters. So you can see what the drop is along the way. And in this case, the drop is actually how high it's going to be because you're shooting in a big, huge arc. But it gives you an idea of what those numbers are. The time, so when you're taking a shot at a specific range, it actually tells you how long it takes for this shot to get there. So here at 550 meters, it's about a second, a little over a second. When you're shooting at 1,500 meters with the 30-30, I don't know who'd be doing that, but you've got over 4 seconds of flight time. Um, Not the most important information to have, but it's handy to know. The key thing here is it's really about the energy, and you can start seeing where things drop off. And instead of having to move around and get an idea of what the numbers are by dragging across the chart, you can just take a look here and see exactly how things fall into place. Let's go to something a little more realistic. We'll do the 300. Everybody knows that the 300 is a great round at range, so we will use it. Doesn't matter. Well, this is the 300 PRC. It doesn't matter which round we're clicking on. We're just going to use this as an example. And you can see here, we start out at 5,000 joules. We zeroed everything to 1,500 meters. And you still have 1,000 joules at 1,500 meters. Your velocity is still 450 meters per second, which isn't super fast. It's a pretty slow round at that point. And it's going to take a little over 2 seconds to get there versus over 4 seconds with a 30-30. Just to give you an idea of the difference between a more powerful round and the 30-30. So that's where this table can come in, really be handy. Something that if you're really trying to dial into things, this is really, really a good way to get an idea of what that information truly is. Now, again, the recommended animals, we'll just click on this real quickly since we're looking at a different weapon. We stretch it out. We'll stretch it out to 1,500 meters. And here, this is a really good example because you can see where, like the bighorn sheep, you're too powerful until you get out to almost 300 meters. Then you get into a great range out to about 1,200 meters. And then you're too weak when you get closer to that 1,500 meter range. So you can really see what type of effective range this weapon has on any of the different animals. Even like the chamois, you're getting really, really pushing the limits at 1,500 meters. And some things like the red deer, you're way too weak. Elk, even worse. The moose, really too weak. And then you've got the small game, of course. Yeah, you can take them as far away as you want pretty much because you've got a ton of energy and they only need a little bit. But I really wanted to showcase something like this with the bighorn sheep, the wildebeest, the barren ground caribou, so you can see too powerful, in the right range, getting too weak, and then too weak for sure. So that's kind of how that works out and shows off. Oh, while I'm here, you see this little button here? This allows you to push this over into the middle of the screen, gives you a bigger view, which is kind of handy for something like this where you're trying to take a look at ranges. It's a little easier to kind of start lining things up and get a good idea of where your limits are. To push it back, you just push this little button again, and it docks it back over here to the right. Just a little heads up on something you can do here for the pop-ups onto the side. All right, so we've walked through the firearms. We've showcased everything in here. We've gotten into the ammo. We've talked about how you can click on the different tabs and cycle to the different weapons, so you can bounce around through the different weapons for the particular round you're on. You can, of course, go to the ammo and cycle through the different rounds to get all the information. Big thing is, if you're trying to compare the rounds themselves, go to the Firearms tab or click on the Firearms tab from the Ammo tab. So click on one of your firearms. And then you can see all 3 rounds and do a like-for-like comparison. But if you really want to dial in and get some information on a specific round, you really want to go to the Ammo page and start digging in individually. And that's also where you want to recommend which animals to use or which animals to take while you're using this round. So the next section we're going to get into is the Animals tab, which of course has all the animals. So in here you can see we've got the big game, small game, your big predators, your small predators, and birds. So you've got everything all laid out in front of you. You can tell what tier the animals are just as a quick look in here if you need to find something. Of course, you've got your grid and list view, so you can change around the look to the way you want it. And we've got the filters here. We'll put this back to list view. We've got the filters here, and this one's a little more interesting and honestly to me a little more useful than say the ammo or the firearms one. So to kind of walk through these, you've got your normal tiers, so tier 1 through tier 6. Of course, you can sort everything by maps. This is a really high level and handy one. So if you're wanting to take a look at what's on a specific map, easy mode, just go to there, filter by the map, and you can get a good look at all the animals on any particular map. The animal type, this is another one that I would use. So let's say I don't know anything about elk crest. I'm more interested in big game than anything, so I may just do a search for big game and elk crest. And here we've got moose, caribou, sheep, goat, elk, Sitka deer, and bison. So that gives me an idea of what type of big game is in elk crest. So that's a really handy filter. There's another one that I also like a little bit further down here we'll get into. The species, of course, you can select any species and filter directly to that. That's kind of handy if you're looking for just one thing specifically. So let's say we want to hunt, I don't know, let's go roe deer. And you don't know anything about the roe deer. Boom, here it is. Click on it and you get all the information about the roe deer. So the good thing about the way the search works is you don't have to dig around to find everything. You can just filter, I'm sorry, I said search, the way the filters work. You can just come over here and get to anything you want directly, or you can look around, get to things, or like I was saying, you can group things together in a really handy way. Now in the habitat section, this one's a little weird. So for example, you look at lowland forest and you're going to think, oh, okay, that's all the lowland forest. And then you see lowland forests. And then you see lowland forest Finland. And it's like, okay, there's got to be some sort of typos or something. Maybe this one's different. So if we just click on lowland forest, you get this set of animals. So you've got the wolf, the fox, the turkey, badger, and a few of these, we'll say deer and pig. Okay. So what is in lowland forests with the S if that's not a typo? Well, it's just the northern lynx and the Eurasian wolverine. So the interesting thing is, the lynx is inland Dakota. The wolverine is inland Dakota. So that's Finland. But we've got lowland forests Finland. So if we click on that, now we get a completely different set of animals. So we get wild boar, European rabbit, brown bear, gray wolf, and pheasant. That really seems weird, but the reality is that's the way it's actually set up in game. So anything you see in here is based from the game files. So that's actually the way they have it set up. It's not a typo. It's not a bug. It's just set up differently. So you do have to be careful with these, and you really have to know what you're looking for if you're going to try to use it for a specific habitat. But if you know the habitat and you're sure about it, this is an easy way to find just the specific animals in a particular habitat, which is really handy. And this one here is one that I really like. So I mentioned that I prefer to hunt like big game. So let's say we go to elk crest, and I just click on antlers. Hit confirm. This is what I really like to hunt. I like to hunt antlered animals. So we've got Alaska moose, barren ground caribou, elk, and Sitka deer. So those are going to be the 4 animals that I'm going to personally enjoy the most. And I can take that filter and just bounce around to different maps and get an idea of what animals are where and figure out, where do I really want to go? What places have the animal setups that I prefer? And I'm just bouncing through all of them here. So you can see, wait, what's going on? No searches or no results. So I could clear out my filters, or I can just go back to my filters. Tickaman Plains doesn't have a lot of doesn't have any antlered animals. They have horns. So let's jump to Matariki. Turn that one off. Okay, here we go again. Now we've got fallow deer, red deer, elk, sandbar, Sitka, whitetail. That's telling me that Matariki's got a lot of stuff that I like. If we jump over to Dakota, we've got 5, the moose, the fallow, the mountain reindeer, red deer, roe deer. So that's a way you can really leverage just the filters themselves to help you find the right type of places to go to hunt what you actually want to hunt. And that's just finding the animals. So now if we actually take a look, we're going to clear these filters out. If we actually take a look at these animals, we'll just use the Alaska moose as a beginning place. Again, it's the same thing as the firearms and the ammo tab. You've got all the game information in here. So you got the hunting tier, the type of animal they are, the maps that they're on, and you can click on these and go directly to the map. You've got the recommended hit energy for the animal, so you know what type of power you have to have. You have the recommended rifles, so we're actually going to go ahead and jump on this one here. This is a great one because, again, you can pick the right rifle for the animal. It's really, really handy. If we move on down, you've got all the life cycle information, so you can tell what time they eat, they drink, they sleep, so you know where to go hunt them. And then you've got the rest of the in-game information. You get your trophy range, so you know where a 5-star starts at, in this case, 449. And then you've got their weights. A lot of this, it doesn't really matter a ton, but having all of it in one place is really handy. And there's other ways to get to the same information, which is really cool. Let's take a look at the rifle ammo again here. So we're going to cut the range down to 200 meters. And you'll see we've got a bunch of different weapons here that actually, let me jump to a different animal. Let's go back and go to something smaller. Let's do Springbok. Okay, go to recommended animal. And here we're going to change the range down to 100 meters. So we've got the 223, 224, the 243, your 270, the 30-30, the 44, the 6.5, and the 7.08. That's the only weapons in game, only rifles in game that have the right amount of power at 100 meters. Now, if we stretch this out to 1,000 meters, you're going to see some other weapons start showing up. So what's happening is it's automatically filtering out anything that is not within the correct range. So here you can see even up to the 338 is now showing up. So we still have the same smaller calibers that were good out to 100 yards or within 100 yards somewhere. But things that didn't even begin to register are now showing up as viable options. And that's where using this filter here can really come in handy and help you figure out which weapons are actually useful. So if you're really only looking at hunting at a couple hundred yards, couple hundred meters, set this down to a reasonable number for you and you'll get a good idea of which weapons work. If you're planning on stretching things out, you're looking to do some really long range shooting, take a look at what's hitting at 1,200 meters. You may find out that something you thought was going to work really isn't the best option, or you may get surprised and be like, oh, these actually have more power than I thought. Like, the 6.5 Creedmoor seems to have a lot of energy at a long range. So there's a lot of options like that, and by using these graphs and charts, you can really get a good feeling for what to use. And again, when you see something like this, the gray simply means that it's out of range. That's either too high power or too low power. The orange is getting into the limits, kind of like the fringe of it. So this is still a little more powerful than the actual recommended, but not enough to lose a star. And then as you get here towards the end, you start getting weaker and weaker and weaker. That's when you start getting out to the point where you're not going to get a lethal kill, certainly not easily. So that's how that's working. Again, green is good, orange is iffy, and if you don't have anything, you need to either stay away from it or understand that you're going to be really overpowered. And like, the 338, of course, it's going to work at 100 meters, but it's just way overpowered and you're going to lose your hunt rating. So that's kind of what that's for, and a good way to figure out what you want to use and to really leverage the range to figure out what's going to work for you. And that's really about it on the animals. There's not much to it. It's just all the different animals in game and the places you can go to hunt them. You can click on the actual maps and get to it. Handy information. Don't get me wrong. You know where to go. You've got your habitats. You know what time to go and all that. But there's not a lot to it. So let's move on over to the life cycle. So this is exactly what we were just looking at with the drink zones and stuff. So the life cycle page is just like every other. You've got the list view, you've got the grid view, and you've got filters. And again, the filters are broken down just like on the animals. So you've got your hunting tier, you've got the map, you've got the animal type, you've got all the different species that you can select through. You've got the different habitats. Again, we just talked about some of the weirdness with the habitat information. And you've got the trophy type. So you can do the same type of sorts here to figure out what you want to hunt, if that's the way you want to do it, so you can see what is where. And the interesting thing, and maybe even a good thing, is if you do the sorts here instead of on the animal tab, you can get some really handy information. So let's do antlered animals, and we'll go to Matariki. So here are the 6 different antlered animals in Matariki. So now you can take a real simple look and get an idea of what time to hunt, where to hunt at that time, and which animals are likely to be grouped together in terms of being in the same type of zones. Now, they may not be in the same place on the map, but the red deer and the elk, they both drink at 9 o'clock. But at 9 o'clock, the fallow deer and whitetail, they're going to be eating. And at 9 o'clock, the sandbar and sika deer are going to be sleeping. So you can take a look at this and kind of plan out a hunt to be able to hunt your preferred zones. So taking a look here, we're in Matariki. Let's go to Linticoto. And I'm choosing Linticoto for a specific reason. So in Linticoto, I don't like hunting the drink zones. I prefer to hunt the eat zones. I don't like the sleep zones so much, but I prefer the eat zones. So if I'm going to Linticoto and I want to hunt the things that I like, I'm looking for big game with antlers. This is what I'm interested in here. So I've got moose, red deer, fallow deer, reindeer, and roe deer. So I can pick out whatever animals I want and figure out how to time my hunts to get the animals in the places I like. So for me, I know I don't like hunting in the dark. So 3 o'clock is way too early. 5 o'clock's pretty early. 7 o'clock, that's fair. I can do a 7 o'clock hunt. So if I want to start at 7 o'clock and hunt eat zones, I'm kind of screwed. I can only hunt the fallow deer and mountain reindeer. And then after that, I've got to go to either drink zones or to sleep zones. But if I push things back a little bit and start my hunt at 1500, so I start my hunt at 3 in the evening. Now I can spend a couple hours looking for roe deer. Then I can jump over and spend a couple hours on moose and red deer. And then I can jump over and chase the fallow deer and mountain reindeer until dark, basically. So by using the different filters, you can actually plan out your hunt a little better and find a good flow for you. Now, granted, I'd probably still have to bounce around the map to get this to work out, but at least I would be able to figure out what animals I want to hunt when. So that's a really cool feature when you start leveraging some of these different filters to be able to find exactly what you're looking for. Now, of course, in the life cycles, you've got the eat, drink, and sleep zones. That's really all this is about. And it does group all the animals together that share a zone. So we're going to clear the filters out completely. So all of these animals here share the same exact pattern for their eat, sleep, and drinking. Okay, so their life cycles are exactly the same. Same thing for this group. Doesn't matter what map they're on, these are the times that they use. And they all do the same thing. And that's the way this is being broke down. These different groups of animals, they're all using the same exact time zones. And again, it's on every map, so it doesn't matter which map you're on. But it gives you a good way to kind of understand which animals are doing things together, which again makes it easier to kind of plan out a hunt and to figure out where to hunt. And of course, all these little tabs here, you can click on them and go straight to the animal and get all the information. You hit your back key and you get back. But that's it. So really, to me, this tab this page is super handy for setting up a hunt. And of course, if you're trying to figure out what time something's eating or drinking, pop in here, go to the animal, say fallow deer, confirm. you've got it right here, right in front of you, plain and simple. There's another way to get it on the map, which is actually easier, but for just looking things up, this is a really simple way to go find everything you're looking for. And again, the filters are the same as the filters on the animals. So the same logic that you use in one, you can use in the other, and it just makes it really convenient to work the two together. So that's it for the life cycle. And now we're into the really big guns. So this is, to me, what the Way of the Hunter Toolbox is truly about. In fact, I usually call it Next Map. There's a reason I call it Next Map instead of the Way of the Hunter Toolbox most of the time, because this is the greatest power of the toolbox, in my personal opinion. And we're going to spend a good bit of time talking about the maps because there is a ton, just an absolute ton of things that you can do, things to understand how it works, and just power. And we're going to show you a little quick tip that can make things a little more convenient for you as a user. So we'll get into that here in just a minute, but let's do the first introduction to the map. We are on Nez Perce, of course, and this should look pretty familiar if you've ever used the other toolbox. You've got the same type of thing going on. So you've got the map, you've got the different campsites, you've got the lodge, shooting range, all that stuff. Of course, you've got all of the different areas named, so you can find where things are at. And you may notice that now you actually have the map borders on here, so you can tell which region things are in. So that's handy to help understand exactly where, for example, Diamond Drill is. So when you're looking on the map, it makes it a little bit easier to figure out where you are. And just like on the original map, you can zoom in, and as you zoom in, you start to get more and more information. So at this level, we get all the echoes and the stands and the points of interest. Zoom in a little more, and you start seeing these little dots show up. So just like when we zoomed in a little bit from the beginning, you got the blue dots. You come in a little more, you get all the white dots. Those are going to be animals. And as you come in a few more clicks, and I'm just scrolling the mouse wheel in, boom, you've got all the animals on the entire map, which is a lot. And you'll notice that there are a bunch in here that are already collared, mostly bear, because I was working on the bear mission in Nez Perce. But that's all the information coming from where I imported my map from the original Way of the Hunter Toolbox. So you can continue to zoom in, of course, but all that is exactly the same as the original Way of the Hunter Toolbox. And of course, you can move the map around to zoom in different areas. So come down here to Haley Witch. You can move around, kind of zoom in, take a good look at things. But the one thing that this map does that the other toolbox just never had the opportunity to even think about is this. This map does 3D, and it's really freaking cool. It looks great, and I'm going to have to give a special kudos out to Nick for going ahead and doing this. It looks really cool. And at first glance, it's like, all right, that's cool, that's neat, but why would I ever care if it's actually in 3D like this? I can look at it just fine from above and have an idea of where things are and how things lay out. Kinda, sorta, but when you start looking at different zones, that's when changing this to give you that 3D feel actually makes a big difference. So like this sleep zone, for example, just looking at it from afar above, okay, it's somewhere on this hill. You zoom in, all right, it seems to be probably about halfway up this hill. But when you take this and pull it down and start looking at it with the 3D effect, you get a really good idea of exactly where this zone is. And you'll see the same thing with other zones. You'll find that oftentimes there's like a little flat spot or some little something that's different. When you're looking at these zones in the 3D view especially, like this zone here, it's right on the edge of this point. It's where if you're looking at it from here, it just looks like it's somewhere in here. But now you know, okay, it's right here where this drops off. There's top of the ridge. So using the 3D can actually be really, really helpful if you're trying to specifically find an area. And if you're wanting to set up to hunt that area, it makes it really handy to figure out where you need to be, because it may be higher or lower on a hill. You may need to find a higher or lower elevation to hunt things. So 3D, while it's just cool, it actually does have a really good use as well. So we're going to go ahead and reset the view here and talk about some of these filters here. So to me, when I look at the map at this level, I don't want all of these blue things in the way. It just takes up too much space. So you can kind of come into the filters here and start moving things around that work for you. So for me, the labels, actually I'm on the wrong filter. Sorry. For me, the hunting stand, the view, and the echo, I got to hide those right off the bat. It's just too much. Now that feels better to me. I don't need them. I can see where I'm at much better without them in the way. So that's the first thing I do. Now I will take a look here at the one I actually clicked on, and I will usually remove the labels. I don't need to know the labels. I know the areas that I'm going to, and it doesn't matter to me if this is Diamond Drill if I know where I'm at on the map. What I need to know is where to go. So I have my cabin. I know I can fast travel here. So maybe I'm wanting to hunt these guys. I can fast travel and come right here to these zones. I can go to these zones. If I'm hunting these turkeys down here, I can fast travel here. I don't need to know what it's called. I mean, I know it's Diamond Drill, of course. So I'm going to usually turn the labels off. The area lines, this is kind of up to you. If you like the idea of knowing which region you're in, it's definitely worth keeping it on. And the same thing with the labels. You may like to keep the labels on. Nothing wrong with it. When you get in closer, the labels kind of turn off anyway. So it doesn't hurt anything. But the blue stuff, I have to get rid of them. I can't stand it. Now here's a cool thing before we go any further at all. So I've got everything zoomed in. So or full screen. So we're going to go out of full screen and take a look here at the URL. So you'll see it says Toolbox by Tessit.io, Maps, Nez Perce Valley, M, and then it has 3, 8, and 9. So this is actually some filters in here. So if I bookmark this, anytime I launch it from here, it's going to take me straight to this map, and it's going to have the filters set up the way I want them. So I don't have to come in over here to the filters and get rid of the hunting stand, the view, and the echo, because it's already done. So if you take a look now, those are gone. Okay, so I'm going to turn them back on. And there's your filters, 3, 8, 9. So by setting up a bookmark every time I launch the map, it's going to already have everything filtered the way I want it. So that's a really neat trick. And because of the way it was designed, it's really easy to pull off, and it just makes it a little more convenient. So I wanted to make sure I talked about that. But let's talk about what these buttons up here do, because we've got a lot to get into. So the first one here, this allows you to hide and show all of the marked animals. So it's the edited animals in the old map. So this is the equivalence of that. So if I zoom in here, you'll see there are no other animals. If I click on it, now all the animals show up. So that makes it really easy if I want to find out just the animals I have tracked. So we've got a few down here. I click on this. All right, so I know I've got this 4-star, this 4-star, and I'm not sure why this one's pink. I don't know what I was doing, but he's a marked animal. Okay, I've got all the bears marked, and only the stuff that I want to go check on is going to show up. So I can turn that off and everything shows back up. And something else that's handy is if you notice when we scroll out, you lose all the animals. Now, if we scroll back in, we flip this on, we get rid of all the unmarked animals. When I scroll out now, all the animals show up. Let me flip the labels off to make it a little bit easier to see. But you can see all the animals, even zoomed out all the way, that I have marked show up. And that's really handy when you're trying to track specific critters. because you don't have to zoom in to find them. You can come out, get a good look at where you need to go, and it's really slick. Now, something else that's interesting is with the same button, if you press the shift key and hit it, now it hides all of your marked animals. So when you're looking at the map, full on, that's kind of overwhelming. But let's imagine that we're just looking at this section. So here's all the animals down in here. I want to take a look at some herds. I've checked these two. I haven't checked whichever ones, and I want to figure out which ones I need to go check. So I can left shift and click. Now I know these are the animals that I need to go check out that I don't have anything marked on. So if I'm pursuing the mule deer and the whitetail or whatever, this is how you can isolate just the animals you don't have any notes on. So it's not something that you're going to use a ton, but it is really handy. And of course, just clicking on this is something that if you are tracking animals, you're probably going to use a lot of. And don't worry, we'll get into how to track the animals and all that. So we're going to flip this off. The next piece is the ability to zoom into just the map. So this button here, all it does is hides a sidebar and zooms you into the map, which is pretty handy. If you're doing a lot of work with the map, I usually keep the map up on my second screen while I'm hunting. I don't need all the other stuff because I'm just in that one map. So usually I'll just hide everything except the map that I'm on. And then whatever animals I have marked, usually I would just have everything I have like this showed up so that I can find everything I'm after. So that's where this button comes in handy. Let me click on him to make him go away. Actually, I'll go ahead and talk about that since we just had it. So all the animals disappear when you zoom out. If you click on one and have their need zone showing up, when you zoom out, it'll actually keep that animal highlighted so you can see it from a long ways out. It's not a super handy feature, but I did want to mention it since we just actually had it showing up here. All right, so that's our ability to cut to just the map. Here we have some high-level filters. We kind of talked about it. So you've got the labels, you've got the area lines, the fitness potential, and the rating. So if we bring these guys up, it'll be a little bit easier to see. So this right here is your fitness potential. It's the badges we have in game, and then the stars are the ratings. So if we take the fitness potential out, it just no longer shows those. And if you take the rating out, you get rid of all the 3 stars and 4 stars. I'm not sure why you would do that normally, but if you need to for any reason, this is where you can do it at. And then of course, 3D. So if I turn off 3D, I can no longer take the map into 3D mode. And if I turn it back on, I can go back to moving it around into 3D mode. Now, something that you probably want to know is how to actually do that. So this is literally as easy as pressing your middle mouse key and dragging your mouse around, your scroll bar. The scroll wheel is your middle mouse key, and scrolling things around. That's all it takes. Nothing fancy. Left click and drag to move the map around. Quick and easy. Mouse and turn it left and right. We'll spin the map around if you need to spin it around for whatever reason. And then up and back. We'll change your tilt so you can move everything around however you want to. Let's bring everything in so you can see all the different animals. And that's all just pressing the middle mouse button, your wheel, and dragging things around. Now, if you're on mobile, things work differently, and I'm not going to try to go through all the mobile controls because I just don't know them. I don't use mobile on it, so I can't really get into that. It does work. I know Nick tested it, but I just don't remember all of the different controls. It's probably a pinch and drag and all that stuff. But the other thing I want to touch on real quick here is this button, and that resets your map. So that's a really handy feature, especially if you're dragging things around. So we've got the labels, the filters. The next thing here, this is your calendar information. So you can set the year and set the day. And then if you take any notes on an animal, you mark it as a 4-star or anything like that, it'll actually tag it with the year and day information you set. So that's a really handy feature. We will get into a lot more on that here in a minute. And then of course you've got the clear filters, which just clears all the filters you set, and you're back to normal, whatever filters there are. So everything is back to the way it starts out. And I'm going to immediately flip these three back just to get it to the way I forgot to confirm it. Set these and hit confirm just to get it back to the way I prefer it. And that's it for these three, for these three buttons. We've covered everything here. So let's take a look at, actually we're going to hold off on the filters for a second. Let's take a look at the animals. So in here, you've got, all the different animals. If you hover over them, nothing happens other than they get a little bit bigger. But if you left click on them, you get some different information popping up, and of course you get their zones. So you can see you've got the eat zone, drink zone, sleep zones. I don't know where the other one is. Let me zoom out. Oh, it's over here. So you've got all the different zones, and that's just simply left clicking. If you right click on it, you have the option to edit, to go to animal info, and to isolate. So we're actually going to go a little backwards and click on isolate first. So what that does is shows you only that particular species on the map. So right click, isolate, and it'll show you all those. You have to clear the filter to get back out of it, because what it's doing is selecting only that animal. But that's what the isolate button does, which is really handy. For example, you're over here and you're working on turkey or something, and you just want to show them. Just hit that right click and isolate. Now you've got nothing but turkey, and you can see where the local ones are to where you're at. Again, just come into the filters and turn that off, hit confirm, and you're back to normal mode. You'll also notice down here at the bottom, you have the edit icon and a little book icon. So if you click on the book, you get all of the encyclopedia information right here on the right hand side of the screen. So if you remember, I said that there was an easier way or a more handy way to get that life cycle information when you're on the map. This is it. You don't have to go back to the life cycle tab. You can literally bring it up right here in map and check the times, which is really, really handy. So we're on, these whitetail here. Click on this. I can see, okay, there are 5, big game, whatever. This is what most people would be interested in, is what time they drink and eat and all that. And then if I click on details, it takes you to the page, and you can get all the deep information on that particular animal. So we're going to use the map link to go back. Now I could just hit the back button. Actually, let me do that. So hitting the back button takes you back to the map. And we'll do another one here. We'll just go to the encyclopedia, go to details. And then in here, I can actually just click on the map itself and go back. Or if I wanted to go to a different map, for that animal, you can do that. So left clicking, you get the edit and you get the bookmark. Right click, you get isolate, I think I said bookmark, the animal info. So you get the isolate animal info and edit. So to isolate, you have to right click. It's not part of the little tab down here. And then edit, you can get to either way. And editing is a huge feature, one of the biggest features in the entire map. And it is really, really, really slick. And this one, it's next level. The amount of tracking, the amount of data that you can compile in here is probably more than most people would ever imagine. So we're going to kind of walk through things here just straight up from the top. So we're on the edit screen for, in this case, this particular whitetail deer. You can pop it over into the middle if you prefer to work in the middle. I don't. I prefer to keep it over here. So you've got whitetail deer. We're in lowland forest. And you've got this 5 and 6. So this is your actual herd makeup. I should say your preferred herd makeup. It's not always going to be 5 males and 6 females, but the game is designed to have this particular herd to have 5 males and 6 females. So if we go to a different herd, so we'll click on these guys, go to edit, it's also 5 and 6. And let's go to these guys. See, there's a theme here. It's 5 and 6. But let's go to these guys. Well, these only have 4 and 5. So you can see it is actually different. Bear, of course, is going to be 1 and 1. I don't know if it actually shows solos as 1. I'd have to go check some. But it gives you an idea of how big that particular herd is likely going to be. So we'll go back to edit on this guy. Oh, here you go. It's a mule deer with a big herd. So 7 and 8 females. So that's what that is. Notes. Of course, the notes here, you can put in whatever. So I'm just going to say, watch this guy. Put in whatever you want. There's a lot of options here. I'll talk about how I use this in a little bit, but we're just going to kind of get something started here. So we'll just say watch this guy just to have something. So in the group members here, you can start to build out animals that you're watching in the actual herd. So let's say there's a 4-star male. So I can choose my sex, male or female. I click my young, adult, or mature. Click the stars, and then all you do is click add. So now my group member A is a male, mature, 4-star, and I added him on year 11, day 2. So if you remember, we're going to close this real quick. In here, we set the year 11, day 2. I'm going to change this to day 3 just so we can see a difference. Oops. So here it's year 11, day 2. Let's add in a female. So maybe it's a female. Let's do this. Let's say there's an albino female. All right. So this is my overall note for the entire herd. There's an albino female I'm interested in. Female, adult. I can't pick any stars because it's female. And I'm going to click add. And you'll see now, group member B is a female, and it's an adult, no stars, and you'll see it's year 11, day 3. So this is the day that I found this animal and happened to mark it. And if you continue to add more animals, it will just continue to mark the letters up. Now, we'll talk about how to clear some of these off and things like that, but it's going to always use the lowest number in the alphabet in order to keep this a reasonable letter to look at. But you can see how it changes year 11, day 2, year 11, day 3, year 11, day 3. Now, it's not going to automatically change to year 12. It's not tied to the game. There's no API to the Way of the Hunter in order to check what year you're in or anything like that. If you want to change the date, you have to go to that filter and change it to the whatever year it is. Basically, it's the same thing as tracking it in a spreadsheet, writing it down on paper. Some people were using one particular herd on a map to keep up with the year. Now, instead of having to use the herd, you can simply go to the filter section and set the year and day. Now, in here, we've got the collar section, and we talked about these collars and how to change them a little bit earlier. So we're going to change this up a little bit because for me, I don't like the pretty palette. I mean, it's nice, it's pretty, but I prefer something that's very distinct. I want my my collars to really stand out on the map. I don't want to have to try to figure out, you know, where things are and struggle to see them. So what I'm going to do is change these to a set right here. So to this set of collars. So what this is going to do is give me the ability to set all of these the way I want them. So we're going to we'll just set this to red-ish for now so we can find the herd. So I'm going to go to settings, and we've got all these collars right here. So we're going to keep white where it's at. This red, I'm going to change it to FF000. That'll be a bright red. This orange, let's call it, it's not bad actually. I don't mind the orange, but FF6700. Can't hardly tell there's any difference there. This yellow, we're going to make it a bright yellow, which is FFF00. And you can continue to go through and change all of these. We'll change this one to be a real bright chartreuse. Whoops. Oh. And then we're just going to change this one here to the, we'll just grab something and drag it. We don't have to set the right number, just to kind of showcase how it looks. So now it's starting out white, red, orange, kind of this off orange, bright yellow, bright green, bright pink. This isn't the way I'd have it set up for real, but I wanted to show how easy it is to change it and how that changes everything when you're marking your animals here. So we zoom back into this reddish colored one. We're going to click on it and use our edit. Now my panel down here is completely different. But let's suppose that I've been playing around and I have this funky looking purple collar, okay? Well, I can grab that number here, go to that settings page and set it in here so I can always use that particular collar. So you don't have to know the collar or go over there and play. You can come in here and just play around with the collars to get to something you like. And you can mark your herds with any color in here. You don't have to select one of these. You can take it and select it any way you want, and it's going to show that herd as that collar, okay? So whatever you change it to, wherever you drag it, that's what it's going to be. But if you want to set your colors down here, just take a look at this hex number, and you'll see it changes. So as I pick these different colors, that gives me the hex number. So let's say I want to change this dark purple to this kind of interesting blue collar. So that's 23FAE2. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to jump to my settings. We're going to click on the one we want to change. We're going to paste in that number, and that's it. Now I have that really cool light bluish, greenish, teal, aquamarine, whatever you want to call it, collar. And now when I go in to edit things, I now have that as my color right here. So I can mark as many herds as I want and use that particular collar to mark the herds. So, well, I should be able to. I guess I didn't click on it. There we go. All right. And it's that easy to build a color that works for you. And I actually kind of like that color. I've not used it before. But let's get back to marking. So we've got the animal members here. Again, we've got the year and day. We've set the collar. The next is your fitness potential. So this one's kind of an interesting one that you can use a few different ways. You can, of course, find out what the actual zone fitness is and mark all the herds, all the animals in the zone, all the herds, all the animals on your map, all the herds in the game to be whatever it happens to be. So if I wanted to go that route, I could go through and just mark them all down here with the crown. To me, I don't need that. I'm more interested in using it as like a favorite icon. So for me, what I'm going to do is anything that I want to track for something specific, I'm going to use one of these to showcase it so that I can look at it at a high level and see, right off the bat, this is a herd that I need to check for some reason. Maybe I use the icon that has the wreath on it as a marker for albinos. Hey, wait a minute. Didn't we mark that one as albino? Did I click on a different animal? I thought I said female albino. Alright, well, let's say female albino. I could have swore I did, but maybe I didn't. So we've now got a female albino marked. So I would use a collar for it personally. If it's a female or a rare of any type. I'm sorry, if it's a albino or rare of any type. But now, instead of using a collar, I can simply use this fitness potential and know without even doing any digging that this one has a rare in it that I'm interested in. And it may be that you use it that way. You may use it to help keep up with which animals to check in which years. So maybe you're tracking a group of, I don't know, maybe say 7 different whitetail herds, and you're checking them year after year after year. you can actually use the fitness potential to keep up with which year you need to check them on. So maybe you need to check all of these in 2 years, all of these in 1 year, all of these on this year, and just keep cycling through until you find what you're looking for. You age out to your maximum age or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways you can use these fitness potential tags. So that's kind of handy. All right, so let's take a look at the members. Sorry, my brain is just shutting down. The members in here, whenever you're looking at it, I was going to look at the comments first, but we're going to go back. So in here, if you click on any of these guys, now you've got more information you can work with. So remember, this was a 4-star mature in year 11, day 2. We're now in year 11, day 3. So he shouldn't have aged up or anything. Nothing really interesting may have happened. Maybe I say he's at the drink zone, at rare drink zone. I hit confirm. Now I have some information down here. So in year 11, day 2, I created the member. Year 11, day 3, I just put a note he was at the rare drink zone. So nothing major, but some information. So you don't see any of that. It's just in here. And you can make changes as time goes by to this particular animal. So we're going to jump out and change the year. So let's say it's a new year. It's year 12. We're on day 1. You don't have to count the days. You can leave the day blank. You don't even have to use the year. But we're going to use day 1 just to showcase how it would be if you use all of it. Whoops. Let's go back to these guys. Okay, so it's now year 12. This guy, he was a 4-star. He's now a 5-star. And I'm going to say that I think he has 1 more year left. Okay, I'm going to confirm that. Now we see it's year 12, day 1. He's a 5-star. I think he's got 1 more year left. I'm going to put the wreath icon because I know that I need to check these guys next year, and that'll give me a good heads up to check that. The female, she's a little bit older now. She's made it to mature. Don't have to do anything major there. She's just a mature. We click on the little check mark, and I can see that she went from adult to mature on year 12, day 1. And this guy, he was an adult. He went to mature. Why do I have him as a 5-star? Oh, that was interesting. I had him as a 5-star adult. That should have been like a 5-star mature. So let's say that he was a 5-star mature and I shoot him. Okay. So we've got some tabs here to where we can make specific edits. So if I click on this guy, I can mark the member as harvested. If I click on this guy, I can mark the member as died. So he effectively died of old age. If I click on this one, it's going to just archive the member into my notes. And of course, you can click on this and delete it. Maybe you made a mistake. For whatever reason, you just want to delete it. You don't need to keep any notes. We're going to say, just for the fun of it, we harvested him. Okay, so now up here where we had A, B, and C members, you'll notice that we now only have A and B, but down here at the bottom, we've got an archive. So I can quickly take a look here and say year 12, day 1. It says it's adult, but whatever it was, he was a 5-star adult that I shot. I can see just by this icon that it's an adult that I shot. Now we'll just add one in real quickly, and we'll say that he died of old age. So now you can see this D1 died of old age. So you've got the little icon here. And again, this doesn't make sense because I have it listed as an adult, but just so you can see what it looks like, that's the way you would archive that. Let's take this female and let's just say we wanted to archive it for information. I now have her down here archived, and they're all out of my active member list, but all down here so that I can continue to have this information. Now, if I don't need that information any further, I can come into it and click on this little delete icon, and he's out of the archive. Now, something that you can do to keep from having to deal with all this is in here, instead of marking them as being hunted or dying of old age, you can just delete them, and they don't show up in the archive at all. So if you're not looking to keep a long-term running history, you don't care about the archival information, you're not trying to track the fitnesses of your herds over several years and see what type of animals you're taking out and what type of animals are dying, you can just basically ignore that. And if you don't actually select anything to add to the archive, they just won't show up. So if we just delete these, well, now we've got 2 comments. I don't know what these comments are still there. All right, so now they're all gone. So we're back to where we were. We'll add a member just for the fun of it, and then we'll delete it. So I'm removing him from the herd. You get nothing down here. You don't have to worry about anything showing up at all. So if you use it kind of like the old map, that's the easy way. Nothing here to deal with. But if you want to keep that information, so say this was a 5-star mature, and you go ahead and shoot him. We're going to add a comment. He was a 98.8. He scored 483. I don't know, just making up numbers. And I shot him. Now I have a history down here. So this is when I hunted. I can click on him and get some specific information. Where did my note go? What? Why don't I see my notes? Okay. Well, I thought that you could have that specific information. I don't use the archive, so I guess you don't see it. Oh, look at that. We learned something together. Here I am trying to show you how to do it, and it doesn't do what I thought it did. I thought that the comments were in here, but I guess not, or maybe it's been removed. You do have comments down here at the bottom that you can add in as well. So we'll say, just to kind of show how it works, we watched a wolf. Watched a wolf drink. I don't know, whatever. Confirm. So now I have a running comment. I watched a wolf drink, and it tags it for the year and day. Now up here, your high-level notes, it's not tied to any year and day. It's just your high-level notes for this entire herd. Down here, you can get as specific as you want, and you do get your day tracking. So this is something that's actually handy if you're doing a lot of really deep tracking. If you've kind of followed around with me, and you probably know my history with wolves. So if I were using the toolbox that we have now, when I was tracking those wolves, I would have been using a lot of comments to mark, the fitness of the animals that I was taking out, which herds where they were coming out of, and all that stuff. This would have made that really, really easy. But I didn't have it, and I got over it. I got through it. I say I got through it. It never really worked because I never did get a 5-star out of Aurora Shores. But that's how you can edit everything. So again, high level, your mix, male and female, put in your notes, set your different parameters for whatever animals, add as many as you need to. I think you can add like 25 of them or something. If you want to just clear them out, just come in and use the delete option. If you want to archive them, you can hunt them. They can die of old age, or you can just archive them. And if you want to, well, let me go through the rest of this. You can set your collar here. You can drag it around. You can set a preset collar, which is what I honestly recommend. It makes it a lot easier to use the collars to help group things. So for me, a lot of the times for adults, like a 2-star adult or a 3-star adult, I'll mark them as yellow. If I'm looking at a mature, I would have a darker green. So maybe something like this, for example. Um, that would be a color that I would set just for a regular like 3-star mature that I just kind of want to keep an eye on. But if I'm looking at something that's a 4-star mature, I actually use this bright chartreuse color. So whenever I look at the map, it stands out like these guys down here. These are real notes. These were 4-star matures that I imported from the other map, and we'll talk about what this is here in just a minute. But that's the color that I used in the other map, which happened to be the same 00FF00. Now, if you have other colors in the map and you don't have them in here, it will import them as the colors in the original map, but it won't have those colors in here. So you would have to match the colors if you want the same ones, because remember, it starts up with a pretty palette. So you would have to make changes here. But anyway, I'm going to go back to the fake one because I don't want to change a real one. So in here, set your colors. You can set your fitness potential. You can take all your notes. And if you just have one or two, the easiest thing to do is just hit delete right here and just delete the whole thing. And then that that herd is back to normal. It's not marked at all. And you can start again fresh, and you don't have to worry about cleaning up any of the notes in here. Now, jumping over to this guy, we were talking about the notes here. So what this is the year that I happened to check this particular group of mule deer. So it was year 19 in Nez Perce. And again, that's making up a starting year and just cycling through for 19 years. And I happen to have 2 4-star matures. That's it. It's that simple. I see I have 2 4-star matures marked here. That's all that I needed in order to track these. And if we go to this guy, year 19, and I had 2 4-stars in it too. But you'll notice I didn't even have both of them marked on here. I just used my notes to keep up with it and marked one. That's the way I often did it, is I would just mark the stars. That's all I really cared about. I didn't necessarily need to have a individual member for each of them, but I would make sure I had the stars marked so it would show up the number of stars on the map. And that's kind of the easy way and how I tend to use it. Now we get over here to the bears. There may be some other stuff because I was doing a lot of other tracking. This one in year 18 happened to be a 4-star, but I was looking for low fits and stuff. So yeah, I've got different years in here where I was tracking things. This guy, for example, I don't even have a note. I needed to go back and recheck him. So that's what the blue was for me. I needed to go recheck him. So you can come up with plans that work for you and ways to mark animals that works for your system. But now you have a ton of other options when you go in to edit the animals to really, really, really track things very distinctly. Now that we're through all the editing, let's talk about these filters. So these filters are truly, truly, truly handy. In fact, I'm going to say that the new filters that were added in the new toolbox are actually more useful than the new features that were added in to editing the animals. That's how good some of these are. But we're going to start at the top, work our way down, and then talk about some use cases and how things can be really, really handy. So, as you know, I take out the hunting stand, I take out the view, I take out the echo. I don't like having those showing up. It just gets too cluttered for me. So I immediately take them out because I don't need it. I don't want to see it. It gets them away. And again, this is where I set up my bookmark with this filter here. Nothing else except this. And then every time I click on that filter, every time I click on that bookmark, it takes me directly to the map and it's already pre-filtered and I'm good to go. Now, as we get into some more of these, we're just going to click on, well, you've got the lodge, the ranges, you've got the campsite with the parking and the parking lot, so you can hide all of those. But we're going to click on this just to hide them to make it a little cleaner to look at. Animals, this is a really handy one. Of course, if you're hunting mule deer, click on mule deer, hit confirm. and you've got all the mule deer on the map. Super handy, not the best way to do it. Again, if you're looking to isolate an animal, you can simply click on it and right click on it and hit isolate, and now you have just those animals, nothing else except the ones you just clicked on. Again, that's just setting this filter, so you can undo it really easily, but to me, I'm not likely to go into the filter to mark it if I'm looking at these animals if I'm on one. But if I know that I'm going to be hunting just whitetails or mule deer or whatever, I may come in here and just click on it so I can just get straight to it. The isolate's handy, but if you're not on one and you're just wanting to find them, maybe you don't know where they are, this is a really good way to figure out where they are. And again, if you have the filter set to 1, you can zoom out and get a really good idea of exactly where the animals are. So maybe you don't know where the turkey are. They're a new critter. You can filter just for the turkeys and get a really good view of where these guys are and start figuring out, okay, I want to come down here and hunt them. There's a group of 3. That looks like a good place to go. There's a couple up here in the top of each cabin. And we got one over here. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier just to find things. But again, that's nothing new. That's just your plain old regular filters. Nothing fancy. The next one, however, is a little new. So this is a need zone filter. So the way it's set up currently, you have all of your need zones marked, okay? So drink, eat, rest, they all show up. So let's go to this guy right here. So we've got the 2 eats, the 2 drinks, and the 2 sleeps. Now, you'll notice as I click on these, that yellow bar shows up. So that is me setting a preferred zone. So if we go into the settings, we've got the preferred zone outline color. I have it set to yellow. That's what we're actually looking at. So we go back to my map here, go back to these guys. So I set this as the preferred zone, or in most cases what you would mark as an often zone. And you can set all 3 of them together. Now if I click on the other drink zone, it turns it off and just moves it around. But whenever you have different types of zones, you can set them all. So for this particular deer, these 3 would be the often zones, and then the others will be the rare zones. So this makes it easy for me to figure out where I'm most likely to go to try to find these guys. And again, yellow may not be the color you want to use. Maybe you want to use red, whatever, doesn't matter. Pick the color that works for you. But that's a way that you can go through and mark a specific zone. Now, if I bring up 2 deer, so if I hit Control and click on it, I now have 2 different deer selected. I can still set it because it's actually tied to each individual animal. And if I know that they're both up here, I can go ahead and mark both of them. So again, that's Control to click, and I can add in as many as I want. This is where those filters start getting handy. So we're in Diamond Drill, and we've got all the animals showing. I just want to take a look at drink zones. So I go to drink zone. Okay, confirm. All these other herds zones are gone. It's only going to show the drink zones, which makes it a lot easier for me to look at things when I'm going in around drink time. And let's be honest, if you're going to Diamond Drill and you're heading to this pond, yeah, drink zones is what you're interested in. So that filter makes it really easy to clear things out and only have the drink zone showing to make it easy to figure out where the animals are. Now, we're going to go a little bit further with this. So we're looking at habitat filters now. So you've got your private lands, so your highland forests, lowland forests, mountains, and swamps. So these are all private areas on the map. That means they're going to have the highest fitness animals. So we're just going to use lowland forest real quick as an example. Remember, I turned all the other filters off, so we're not filtering by anything except animals that are in the lowland forest as their primary habitat. Now, if we zoom out, that's it. These are the only ones that are in here and have it as their primary habitat. That makes it a whole lot easier. Let me click off here to get rid of the drink zones. Let me turn these back off. You can see why I always turn them off. But look how clear that is. I know exactly which animals are in the lowland forest. And all I did was clicked on one button. Let's take a look at highland forest. Again, just as plain and obvious as it gets. All of these guys are going to be high fitness, potentially, but they're going to have the best potential for high fitness, and they're all in that private zone. And we can go ahead and just take a look at the mountains. And you'll notice all these guys are grouped up together, and they're all going to be, in their private land, their mountain land. And then you have these two cougar down here. Now, that's interesting because they are in mountains and it's private land. This isn't mountains. So if we come back here and turn our label back on, we're in Halywich, which is highland forest. The mountains are way up here. Okay, well, maybe the map goes further down. Nope, we turn the map lines back on. You can see Halywich is all of this, yet these guys are considered in the mountains. So that's something that you may or may not have picked up on in game, but the animals that are in specific zones oftentimes have one or two outliers that are technically outside of that particular zone. And that's not the case in all the maps and all the animals, and most of them aren't nearly as extreme as this, but this just happens to be a really great example. So if you're looking for cougars, you come down in here. These guys are in their private land, and they are going to give you the high fitness. And you'll notice if you're in game, when you're looking at the herd management information, it's going to tell you these are going to have the same type of fitness as the cougars up in here. So let me just right click on a cougar and isolating. So now, let me get off the zones. Now there's 3 up here. There's 2 down here. Those are the only 5 cougars that I'm really going to chase hard if I'm looking for a 5-star. They're in the private land. They're cougars. This is the best place for me to go if I'm looking for a 5-star. I don't have to know anything about where they live. I don't have to know what their fitnesses are. I can just come into the map and with a flip of a few filters have a really good idea of where things are. I'm going to turn the lines back off and the names back off. Just, you know what? I'm going to even go a little bit further. We're going to turn the campsites off just to clean the map up to make it easier to see. We'll keep the cabins in just for reference. But you'll see what just happened. There's another cougar here that I didn't even notice. So by turning off some of them other filters, I now see, oh, hey, look, there's another one here. I legitimately didn't see it. So clearing off the map can help you out a lot. And that was as simple as just going in here and clicking on the mountains and then choosing to isolate the cougar because that's what we happen to be interested in. So we'll turn the cougar back off. And now we've got all these animals showing back up again. So you get the one over here, you get your cougars here, you got, of course, your bighorn sheep, you got your goats. So that gives you a really easy way to find the private lands. Now, remember, private lands aren't the only places where you can get 5s. So if you take a look at your primary lands, you have some interesting names here like Grasslands East and West, which was something new with herd management that we didn't know about. So we'll click on Grassland. Let's do Grasslands West. There's only 4 or deer in that entire habitat. So when you're looking at doing herd management, this is easy because it's only 4 herds you have to manage. This one particular habitat, you can really drive things pretty easily just by watching these 4 herds. Now, if we come over here and go to Grasslands East, there's a few more. So there's 2 herds in here that most people don't even realize. Most realize these 3, of course. Okay, that's obvious. Most people pick up this guy down here and know he's here. And then this guy down here, if you really come way down, you'll pick him up and understand that he's part of it. But this guy, he gets skipped all the time. And I'll show you why. When you start looking in the map, he's way up here in the swamps. He's up here beside the mule deer that drink at this pond right here. So there's some mule deer that show up in here too, which you can't see right now because the mule deer are not part of Grasslands East. Okay? So by simply filtering for these zones, these regions, the habitats effectively, you can really start to figure out that there may be animals that you haven't been managing that you really need to. So that's a really good way to leverage the filters to make your life easier and to help you figure out where to go for things. So let's say we want to hunt these guys, or maybe we don't want to hunt these guys. Maybe we want to go hunting down the river. We're going to hunt these guys, so we'll start at 11 o'clock. But let's see, if it's 11 o'clock, what else might we find? Let's turn that filter off, and we'll get into the rest of these in a minute. But we're going to go to this need zone. So remember I said we had the drink zones and the eat zones and all that. If you get in here, there's also times. Now, you're probably thinking, what is a time zone? There's no time zones in game. Well, you're right, there's not. But you can actually filter and have it show what animals will be doing at a specific time. So now, the only zones that are going to show up are going to be zones that these animals would be at 11 o'clock. Now, again, we're talking about zones, not animals. So if we want to start looking at dialing down what we're going to hunt, there's a few different ways. We can, select the specific area. So we've got Grasslands East, Grasslands West as a primary and secondary. We can throw in Grasslands. And that's going to give us a really good grouping of animals down through here. So you've got east and west for the mule deer and the whitetail. If you go to these cougars, they actually use Grasslands as a secondary, so they would show up. And then you've got your fox, they use Grasslands as a primary. So you've got your east and west, your Grasslands as a primary, depending on the different animal. So by using these filters here and understanding which animals do what, I'm able to figure out exactly what I could be seeing as I walk down the river. So again, this is a really tricky one, so I wanted to use it as an example. So you've got your Grasslands East, your Grasslands West as your primary. And then you've got your secondary as Grasslands East and Grasslands West. And that's going to show all the animals. I set the need zones to 11 o'clock. So what that's going to do is allow me to come through here and click on these and see which specific zones are likely to hold animals as I start this walk down through here. So maybe I start up here and we'll just click on a few different animals to pull up the zones. Now I'm getting a picture of where these animals are likely to be. So at 11 o'clock, if I start down here at the tower and work my way down, each of these zones are places that I'm likely to find an animal. If I've been using the map and I've been marking the drink zones, and sleep zones, I may find that I have something like this. Now I know that any of these yellow ones are the most likely places to hold stuff. So now my hunt just went from randomly walking down the river, maybe finding something, to knowing which animals are likely to be through here. knowing exactly where they're likely to be at, because I know I'm starting the hunt at 11 o'clock and I've marked my zones. So by using these filters and marking your zones and things like that, you can have a very clear hunt set up all before you do anything and know exactly where to go down through and hunt things. Now that's fine and dandy. It's really specific because we're in Nez Perce, we're using the Grasslands East. Let's go to a new map. So we go to Elk Crest. Let's pretend we don't know anything about Elk Crest and I need to get a 5-star moose. Okay, so I come in here, I turn off my blue buttons because I don't like them. I'm only interested in moose, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on moose. All right, now I know where all the moose are. I don't know anything about moose, so I'm going to bring up the encyclopedia. Their primary habitats are grasslands and highland forest. Okay, so let's take a look at grasslands and highland forest. So we're going to scroll down here and we're going to do grasslands and highlands. Oh, it's highland forest or highlands? Yeah, highlands. Okay. So now I've got an idea. We've got grasslands, we've got highlands. All right, well, what about dialing it in a little more? I'm going to be hunting, it's 12 o'clock. So now I need to figure out which zones they're at. Okay, so at 12 o'clock up here, I've got a bunch of drink zones. So this is a really handy place. I know I can go into this area and hunt through here real quick and easily. I know I can come into this camp here and move up. Maybe the wind's blowing the wrong way, so I can come to this camp and come over. I've got these guys here I can look at. I've got guys down here. Oh, I don't want to edit that. To get to the book. So the primary habitat is grasslands and highland forest. We've got all their drink zones. Let's see what ammo or what rifle I should use. 308 is what I like, but that's probably going to put me having to get really close. Maybe I should use a 300 Winchester Magnum. Yeah, I'll use the SM-12. That's a good call. All of this without knowing anything, and in just a couple minutes, I've already been able to figure out where to hunt them, what to hunt them with, and where they're going to be at a specific time, and to be in their primary habitat. That's pretty handy. It doesn't get much easier than that. And this is a map that if I didn't know anything at all about, I now have an idea of where I can go to hunt the moose. And that's, again, ultra high level, just a way to do something. So staying on this map, we'll take a look at some other options here. So let's say we're not looking for a specific critter. So we're not looking for moose. We'll just click on him to get rid of him. We're looking at everything here, so it's all opened up. I'm only interested in big game. Let's click on that. All right. That's a lot of animals. That's a lot. Okay. Let's see if we can drill it down a little more. Okay. Let's do antlers. Okay. So now we've dialed it down a little more. And let's only do tier 6. All right. So there's my T6 antlered animals in Elk Crest. I don't know anything about them. I haven't looked at the map before, but already I have an idea of where to go. Of course, you click on the animal and you get the zone showing up. Now, I'm only seeing the drink zones because I still had the filter set for 12 o'clock. So let's go into our need zone filter and reset it. Now, I see all the zones for my animals. Oh my gosh, there's 3 extra zones here I wasn't expecting. Yeah, they have 3 for each of these in their primary habitat. That's fine. We can still go through and mark which one's the often zone. Even though there's 3 of them, it still only has the one marked for often. So I get some often drink, eat, sleep, all 3 of them. And now, assuming this is real information, I would have this elk marked up in a way that I could exactly find him at any time. I can use my filters to figure out exactly what time to go find him. So that's how you can kind of use the map to plan hunts without even understanding what the map looks like, where the animals are. It's all in here, so it makes it really, really easy. All right, so I think we've walked through all of the different filters on here. Let's just quickly make sure. So you've got all the zones, so your campsites with and without parking, your parking lot, all the little blue things, your hunting stands, the echoes, points of interest. You can filter by any individual animal, of course. The need zones, this is a new one, really handy. This is one that I really like if you're trying to figure out where to go and what to expect at a specific time. The drink zones are really handy. So if I go back to Nez Perce, everybody hunts drink zones in Nez Perce, right? Everybody hunts diamond drill in Nez Perce. So let's add in some filters here to hunt what we would be interested in. So primary in the lowland forest. So we'll go ahead and do big game. 2 clicks, I've now got everything that I'm really interested in diamond drill, which is the 2 different deer. Now, if I click on these guys, I've got all these zones that are kind of in the way. So I'm going to go ahead and open up all of these guys, and we're going to use our time filter. Actually, we'll just use a drink filter. So it's a hunt that I'm starting at 11, and I'm going to continue for a couple hours. Now I know exactly where all these guys should be. I can take this map, put it on my other screen, and I know that I can start my hunt up here at the pond and just work my way down and have a good idea of where everything's going to be. Now, we all know that when you first start out, most of them are up here at the pond anyway, and that's, you know, kind of where you hope everything that you're looking for is. But on the first one, this is one where you do have to expect to walk around a lot more, and after you do it a couple of times, you know where they're at. But if you're new to the map, now you have a really good idea of where to start out at. Like these guys here, I rarely see them here, okay? But these are here a lot. These are rarely here for me. These are rarely here because they're usually up here. These guys, this is where these guys are usually at. These two, I think they're usually up here. So that's kind of the 3 zones that I run into most of the time. This one, I don't even know what animal that one's tied to, if I'm being honest. That's none of these guys. Oh, that's him. I didn't even know he had a zone over here. I usually find him over here. So again, just by using these filters, I discovered something that I would have never paid any attention to. I don't know that I've ever seen them up in here, if I'm being totally honest. But I'm pretty particular about the way I hunt. I tend to not take a lot of shots in one herd in one place. So if they're down in here, I'm likely to keep them here forever. Same thing if they're down in here as the Alton zone, it would have likely stayed there. But that's the type of things you can discover just by using some of these filters. And that just makes it really easy. But if I were new and I were trying to figure out how to hunt diamond drill for my big deer, I'll just say deer because it's both whitetail and mule deer, this is a really easy way to figure out exactly where to go, when to go, and you can see when you dial in exactly what these areas look like. And this is another good example of where 3D comes in. So when you're looking at it from here, it's kind of hard to tell what this layout actually is. But when you zoom in, you get a really good picture of what things look like from ground level. So you're coming in from this camp here, you've got a ton of elevation. And it's actually hard to see where these guys are at oftentimes because of the woods and stuff, and they'll come walking down. And if you really get into it, that's when you start looking at the zone before, so you know where they're coming from. But by having the 3D, you get a really good idea that all these guys are down in the bottom of the valley. So what I don't want to be doing is walking right down to the bottom of the valley. I want to be up on one of these hills, depending on the way the wind is blowing, to walk down through here. And because I'm in 3D, I can get a really good look and tell that these are going to be really bad places to walk. So if I want some elevation to hunt down through here, I probably don't want to be on this side. I want to be on this side. And that's not something that's as easily seen from here. If you know what you're looking for, all right, yeah, you may see it. But when you zoom in 3D, it's completely obvious. So that's where the 3D can really help you out when you're planning your hunts and getting an idea of what the layout is, what the topography is, and being able to figure out where you need to be and where to go. And it's kind of like this. This one, it's easy, walk the road. It's pretty obvious. It doesn't have to be 3D. You can tell this is going to be a good place. Now, if the wind's blowing the wrong way, okay, you're going to have to change things. But you don't want to be walking down along the water because they're all going to be sitting up on this hill. And again, in 2D, you may not realize how much of an elevation that is where these guys are. And you'll start, maybe you decide to start just walking the water to pick up zones, and you end up getting yourself down below the animals and in a bunch of trees. So it's just a matter of being able to leverage all the information you have in here, and using these filters makes that really, really easy. Again, you've got your private lands, you've got your primaries, you've got your secondaries. All that's really handy. Of course, you've got the animal types, which we kind of talked about for the big game. Trophy type, same thing as before, your antlers, horns, skull, weight. So depending on what is being scored, you can sort through things here. So let's do skulls, for example. Oh, I've turned those filters back on or reset them or something. All right. So here are all the animals that have skulls, okay? So all of these guys are going to be scored by their skull. And if I want to just figure out and hunt just private land, I can turn all of these on. And now it's super obvious where I want to go if I want to just find some sort of skull for a 5-star. I've got stuff down here in Diamond Drill. I got stuff over here in Haley Witch. I've got stuff up here in She-Devil. So it's super, super easy to figure out how to find things because of these amazing filters. And there's, different ways you can use them, of course. I tried to kind of go through and showcase some ways for a new user, a new hunter, someone new to the game, to be able to leverage this to help you figure out where things are. But let's clear them and talk about just the most simple thing. Any animal at all. So we'll say the Rocky Mountain elk. I'm going to isolate it just to clear stuff out of the way. So now I don't have all these other animals in my way. If I'm wanting to hunt an elk, and I'm not because of where it's at, this is just a specific herd. This is what I do. I go to the animal, I show the zones, and I figure out what time it is, what time they eat. So I go to elk, I come here. All right, my game time happens to be, say, 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so at 8 o'clock they're eating, they're getting ready to go to drink. So I know that he's either going to be here or here, and they're going to be walking either to this drink zone or this drink zone. We're coming from here and walking to this drink zone or to this drink zone. So at 8 o'clock, I'm probably not going to be hunting elk because I know they're going to be moving over here to the drink zones. So I'm going to wait until 9 o'clock, or I'm going to skip to 9 o'clock, and then I'm going to hunt these two drink zones. And all I'm going to do is find the nearest place that I can fast travel in, which would be here, assuming I have this opened up on the map. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to drive down to here, walk down the river or creek, and check out these 2 zones. Now, if the wind is blowing from west to east, then maybe I have to do something different. Usually it's not blowing from west to east in here, but that's the easy way to figure out where these guys are. And maybe it's a new animal that you've never hunted or a new place that you've never been. You can do the same thing anywhere and get a really good idea of where to go just by coming here into next map, or the Way of the Hunter Toolbox, if you want to call it the right name. So I've really spent a lot of time on these filters, and that's just because they are so powerful. Now, again, there's other things you can filter through. You can turn on and off the 3D. You can turn on and off the ratings, the fitness potential, your labels, and all that stuff. And that's all great and handy. But when it comes time to actually finding animals, the filters here just give you a ton of options to make it really, really easy. And of course, don't forget to right click or click on the edit icon and come in here and mark your herds. It doesn't have to be all that complicated like I was showing. You can come in, you don't have to leave any notes. Let's just say it's a 4-star male, add it, give it a green collar, you're done. It's that quick. Now these guys are green, and I know to check them out next time, next year or whatever. I don't have to come in here and set the years. I can leave the years as blank. I can leave the day as blank. Maybe I don't care at all about that. Oh, wait a minute. Clicked on the wrong thing. I don't care about what year it is. We'll just add a 3-star, for example, so you can see what it looks like. If there's no year, it's just blank. It doesn't hurt anything. Doesn't change a thing. If I come in here and I set the year, but not the day, that's perfectly fine too. So we'll go, just click on edit here, and we'll just add a female so it shows up different. So now you've got your mature that we marked the first time in year 12, day 1. In this one, we didn't have any year set at all. And then in this one, we have just year 3. This is what I personally use. I don't track the days in here. It shows me the day in game, so I track the year in the map. But that's that easy. And that's how clear it is and how obvious it is. So no reason not to use the map to your advantage, especially when it's that easy and you can clear things out. Now, the other thing that we didn't mention is with these filters, I may have all kinds of crazy filters set up, checking different things, whatever I happen to have here. So I've got all these weird filters, and I'm not finding what I'm looking for. Just come up here, left shift, click on that, and you just reset all your filters. Quick and easy. Everything is gone. You're back to the starting point, and you can go through and set it back up the way you want it. Maybe you're wanting to hunt badgers, and you're off and running again. So anytime this is orange, there is a filter of some sort set, and you can just left click, left shift and click, and voila, you are back to normal. And I think that's it, guys. So we have spent a ton of time. We've went through a ton of things, and I know this has been a super long video. I apologize that it took so long, but there's just a lot of stuff to go through, and I wanted to showcase not just how to do some of the stuff, but how you can use it in game and let next map, the Way of the Hunter Toolbox, really help you out and make the game easier for you. And that's especially handy for newer players, people who haven't spent any time in the toolbox. It's just so you can kind of think about some different ways to use it. And again, let me clear these off because I don't like all that. So I hope I covered everything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give a little space here right now and say if I skipped anything, I will just edit it in and cover whatever I may have missed. So there may be a weird kind of break and jump to a different spot on the screen. So we'll just go back to the home page so we can at least make it clean. And if I did skip anything, we'll hit it right now and get that knocked out. Otherwise, we're just going to say, okay, this is the home page. We kind of walk through everything on here. You've got your maps, you've got the guides, you've got the different information down here at the bottom. Oh, and a new thing, you can buy Nick a coffee. So if you want to donate, you want to give Nick a little praise for his work, click on Buy Me a Coffee, and it will take you to him where you can give him a tip of whatever denomination you feel is appropriate. So let me get out of that. How do I get away from it? Oh God, I'm trapped. My back key isn't working. What have you done to me, neck? I'm going to have to shrink it down and go back this way. All right. It opens a new tab. I was just unable to go back because it opened a new tab. But if you want to give Nick a coffee, that's certainly a great way to give him a tip for all the work he's done. And I'm going to kind of, I don't know, maybe say more than I should. This has been an enormous amount of work. The amount of time that Nick has put into this tool is absurd. We're talking just probably hundreds and hundreds of hours at this point. Weeks and weeks and weeks of tons of effort, tons of work. And then you start adding people like me and Joe and Sightless and everybody giving feedback. And you guys know I've been working with Nick from the original one early on. I've given him a ton of feedback, ton of suggestions, ton of requests. You know, do this, do that, don't do this, make this better, make that go away. But he's the one who's doing all the work. So we give him tons of ideas, add more work for him. So if you see him around, thank him. He has put in a ton of effort, and he's not making any money off of it. This is the first time ever there's even been an option to give him a tip or anything. So I'm going to say, go give him a tip. He's earned it. He's put in a ton of effort. But this is the landing page, your home page, where you can get to everything. Again, firearms, we went through everything in here. Really handy, great way to get some specific information. An easy way to go to the firearm you're interested in and start looking at which rounds to use at long range. So remember, if you set your distance here to 1500 for both, you can start getting a really clean look at what type of power you have and easily tell, okay, I want to use a trophy bonded tip if I'm going to be doing long range shooting with the 7600. Ammo, of course, same thing. You can just dial in a little more specific. This is where you can really get into the weeds with the energy at long range by clicking on the double chevron, and you can start really breaking down where the power falls off. Animals, of course, it's animals. You get all the information. Really valuable to use your maps to filter through these guys and click into what you want and use the recommended rifle info so you can find out which weapons are the best, which rifles are the best options at whatever range you want. And remember, you can change that range out to 1500 meters. So you can use that to your advantage to make it easier. Life cycles, of course, if you're trying to figure out when things eat and drink and what's grouped together, the life cycles is a great way to help start planning a hunt ahead of time. And then, of course, you've got all the maps. If you click on the map here, you get all these guys. And, of course, you can click on them from the home page. You can click on them from this page. You can click on them directly here. Lots of ways to get to them. But, you know, once you're into them, that's where you get all the additional filters. You get the ability to clean up how things look at the high level here. You get to get into the individual filters and really start picking out what you want things to look like on your map. And that's the easiest way to really take advantage of things. And I'm highly going to recommend tracking your years here. If you're trying to grow 5 stars, if you're trying to keep a track of things and understand, you know, when things are going to grow, using this to your advantage is going to be huge. And the fact that it automatically allows you to have the time marked when you edit these things. So again, if we just add this 3-star, having that year marked here, that just makes it easy. You don't have to do anything. You literally set it once, go hunt all day, and anything that you mark is marked in here for you. You come in the next day, you jump a day or two or whatever. When you jump a year, just come in here and change it to year 25. Now everything is going to be set up to mark it as year 25. Again, don't forget about being able to hide and show just your specific marked animals. So like these guys, they're all imported from the other map for me. So I'm going to edit them. And you can see here, this is a solo herd. So you can see there's only one male. For me, if I have it marked as orange, that means it's a solo. But if you didn't know that, when you go to edit it, you can take a look at the mix here and see, okay, there's only one male here. That's not a great herd to hunt in terms of like trying to find multiples, but it is one that you have to keep an eye on if you're trying to manage them. So that's it. I don't think there's anything else. We walked through all the settings. Again, you can change the order of the collars here, set the collars the way you want them, the individual collars. Your zone outline, you can change it to red, yellow, whatever works for you. And if you screw things up, just click on this little reset button here. Boom. Everything's back to what it started out as, and you can do it all again. Oh, I need to talk about the search. So if we go to search, you can search for weapons and gear and things like that. So we'll type in 308. You can see you get the 308 Winchester for the ammo. You get the 308 in the Steyr monoblock. You get the core lock tipped. So everything 308 related you can find, and you can just click on this and go straight to it. Quick and easy. You can search for animals the same way. So let's type in white for white-tailed deer. There's your white-tailed deer. Let's just do deer. You can get all the different types of deer. But something that's really interesting is you can also search for notes. So let's go to an animal here. We'll go to this fox, and we're going to edit him, and we're going to add a note. And we're going to say this is year 50, and he's an albino. I know there's not albinos, but that's fine. We'll just say for fun there is. Okay, so I now got year 50 albino. If I do a search for albino, there you go. Takes me straight to him. I get all the information that note I just typed in. So let's say that this guy here, we put a note on him, and we'll say he's year 60 and albino. Okay. Go to my search, type in year 50, year 60, albino. So now I can use keywords to allow me to search for different things. So I use the year 50, like when I'm hunting something and taking notes, I tend to put the year that I find it in. So I could easily jump back to that year with a search term. I could use albino, rare, whatever as a search term, or I could come up with my own specific terms and put them in. So maybe I just used watch and say, watch this guy or whatever. So you can use the search like that. Now here's something that's interesting. So we put in albinos here in this purse. Let's go to Aurora Shores. And we're going to say this guy is albino. Okay. Now we go to search. I can search for year 50. Nothing. I can year 60. Nothing. We know that year 50 and 60 was there. We just used it. So let's use albino. Okay. So we have two here. So albino from one of my original notes is an albino young male, and I need to take him in year 108. This is exactly how I would use this. So this is, again, this is a real note that I actually have in game from the other map that I processed over. So this is an import. I know what year it is in game. I track it obviously in a different place since it wasn't in here. But I know that in year 108, this is when I want to take this guy. He was born in whatever year. So I know in year 108, this is when I want to take him. So last time I looked at him, he was a 3-star adult. Okay. So that's me continuing to track him year after year. Last time I checked on him, he happened to be a 3-star adult male. And I know he's albino. He was an albino young male when I first found him. And I know what year to take him because I knew what year he was born. So that's actually a really good example because that's real. But with albino, we have the barren ground caribou that we just marked. But you'll notice none of the albinos from the other maps are showing up. So when you go into the search, it breaks it down by map. So if I go back to Nez Perce, whoops, I hit find. It's Control K. Now I've got my albino fox and my albino white-tailed deer back. So it's specific to the map you're on. Now, if you're on, let's say you're on the home page and type in search, well, we'll have to back it out. Type in albino, nothing. You're not on a map. Albino doesn't attach to anything else in game. So there's no albino rifles or anything like that. If I type in year 50, there's nothing. And it's not that I'm using the wrong caps. It's the search is tied to where you're at for the maps. That's all of your custom notes. Now, if you're looking for firearms or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can be in the map here, and if I bring up the search and type in 308, I still get all the 308 information. I can click on it and go to it, but it's only going to show you the animals for the map you're on. So that's a really neat way to be able to go through and track your rares. If you want to check specific years, anything like that, you can use your notes and track things. And even more, so if we go to a different note on here, so let's go to edit him. We'll just say Bob here. And then we're going to come down here in these comments and say zebra. Just for the fun of it. I'm going to confirm that comment. So I now have just a basic comment. Again, if I had the year set, it would give me the timestamp, which is where that's really helpful. But we'll bring up our search. Again, I hit Control F because that's just habit at work. And we're going to type in Bob. So it's looking at everything you type in here. So zebra. That's the same exact animal because I put Bob up here and zebra down here, but it's looking through all these different places. So you can get really creative and use the animal's notes and comments to really make it easy for you to find things. So a really cool way to me is to use the word check. So check in 25, 29, whatever. And then when you come to this map, go to check. And you can see, okay, I've got one to check in 29. Now let's say I've done that to 100 different animals. And I have check in 28, check in 29, check in 30, check in 41. I can always just dial it in more and get to the correct year for what I'm actually looking at. It's year 29 now. This would be my list of animals to check in 29. So use this stuff to your advantage. The escape key will clear that out. Use this stuff to your advantage and make it easier on you. Again, sometimes it's as simple as using your filters. Sometimes it's a matter of taking notes. But all these tools, we've spent a ton of time working with them, a ton of time, giving feedback, testing, and things like that. So we've tried to come up with a way to make the tools as useful as possible and to make the map look as good as possible. And Nick has spent a ton of time building out the UI, the logic, and all that stuff to make everything just look good, work great, and really just be the next level when it comes to any type of application for Way of the Hunter. And that's it. I think we're actually done this time. Hopefully that covers everything you can imagine. I know it's a long video. We're at like 2.5, almost 3 hours, something like that, but now I'm sure. But there was just too much. There was too much. We had to go through a ton of things to really showcase what all you can do, and not only show what it can do, but show you ways to use it and ways to take advantage of it. Again, this wasn't the high-level introduction. This is a full tutorial, and we really needed to get into the weeds on how a lot of this stuff works. And the maps, it's just too much here to not spend the time to show you guys some really cool tricks you can come up with. If you're willing to make it through the video. It's a lot. All right, guys. Hopefully we covered everything. If not, then I'll have to do some amendments and add things in. But that's it. So you guys have a good night. God bless and happy hunting.